I am Jacquie Franciulli for Wahoo's 24/7, and welcome to a new episode of the Good All Podcast. Well, football is finally back. Virginia is a little over a week away from kicking off against Coastal Carolina. So we're not just talking about football, we're going to be watching some football. And my guest who's coming on the show and I have watched a lot of football when it comes to training camp for UVA. But before we bring on Daily Progress's Greg Madia, why don't you go ahead and like this video and click on the bell so you're notified whenever there is a new video on YouTube, and go ahead and follow us wherever you listen to your podcast and leave us a review so we can continue to bring forth some excellent news from Virginia and all the extensive coverage. Now, here is Greg Madia. Greg, thanks so much for joining us today on the show.
Yeah, Jackie, happy to be with you.
It's nice that we're going to actually watch football games, right, Greg, and stop talking about practice.
Yeah, enough projecting and trying to forecast what's going to happen. It'll be nice to see what actually happens after it's a long off season, right, for Virginia, Jackie. The portal, the push Virginia made starting in as soon as the season ended in December, January, to upgrade the roster, enhance the talent and the depth. It's been a long time coming, it feels like. It's been an anticipated season for Virginia fans to see what all this, the newcomers and the team how it comes together. So it'll be interesting once games get going. It'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, this offseason has been long, Greg. I mean, because of the portal, I feel like we haven't actually stopped.
No, I mean, it's changed. I mean, that's one thing covering the sport has changed over the last couple of years with the portal. And then you add in just how aggressive Virginia was, right? That was kind of the difference this year between the last two off seasons, I would say, is Virginia really, really pushed to kind of flip the roster a little bit. They have 33 transfers in total on the roster, Jackie. It's a total, it's kind of a new look, new field team for the Cavaliers.
Yeah, over 30 transfers, 53 new faces total with all the high school guys. I mean, this is a brand new roster for Virginia. But before we kind of talk about those new faces, the big news, obviously, this week was about a veteran voice on that defense for Virginia. Linebacker Cam Robinson is expected to miss a few games after fracturing a bone in his collarbone. So when you see that, Greg, and obviously that's a big loss for them, but in my opinion, when you look at the schedule, if he misses a certain amount of games, we're expecting before Florida State is right about the timeline that I've been hearing, maybe. I think Virginia has enough talent in that linebacker room to keep them going until the really nitty-gritty ACC conference schedule starts going.
Yeah, I tend to agree with the linebacker depth. I mean, James Jackson and Trey McDonald have both played a lot of football, too. They're excited about Landon Danley also, right? He's probably the fastest player at the position that Virginia has on the roster, coming down from safety where he began his UVA career. I think there's probably enough there. Trey McDonald really had a great back half of the season, in my opinion, last fall. Filled in nicely when James Jackson had to miss time because of an injury. And I didn't think that was too big of a hit to take right when they lost Jackson. I kind of feel the same way about Robinson, even though he's an elite player and probably their best athlete on defense. I still think they have enough between James Jackson's experience and Trey McDonald showing last year he could play, and then Landon Danley being a guy that is going to have to do it for the first time, but played on a bunch of special teams last year and could be a possibility there too.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what Elliot was saying. Kind of go in there and take advantage of how the schedule is right now with them having plenty of time with still training camp, so a couple of weeks here, and do it surgery then rather than waiting and then possibly having him miss out on some important games in the second half of the season when you're knee deep in AC conference play. And I think in addition to the linebacker depth that they have, I mean, they also added so much depth on their defensive line that I think you can kind of say that they'll be able to get to the quarterback more, because that was what Cam Robinson was able to do last year. Was he was able to get up front a little more than some of their D linemen was. But I think with the additional of all the guys up front, which we're talking about new faces earlier. I think that is the strength of this team when you look at how much depth they have on that defensive line. I mean, Tony Elliott said they're looking at playing 10 guys, 5 on the outside, 5 on the inside.
Yeah, Jacquie. Yeah, Cam Robinson led the team in sacks last year. For those who don't remember, he had 5 sacks a season ago, and they had to bring him on blitz often because they just couldn't get home with 4. And the hope is this year for Virginia that they'll be able to help create some more pressure on the quarterback just with its defensive front. Of course, you're still going to blitz at times, but maybe not having to go to the well with a guy like Cam Robinson over and over again out of necessity. I think if you look at what they have on the defensive front, like Fisher Kamak is a proven pass rusher, did it well at UNLV for last season. I think Jacob Holmes too, somebody who doesn't really get talked about a whole lot. Like if you can get a push from the interior of your defensive line, and I don't think he'll be a starter for them, but I think he'll be a key contributor. He had 8.5 sacks over the last 2 years. I think I looked at it the other day, and in comparison, over the last 2 years, Virginia's gotten I think 4.5 sacks from its defensive tackles completely over the last 2.5 years. So it's a wild difference in what he could do. And just from talking to some folks there at Virginia, they feel like if they can get an interior push, it'll really help free up some of the edge players too, like Kamak and Mitchell Melton in from Ohio State. And then they'll even bring some other players off the bench who can probably help them at defensive end. So I think the defensive line is in a better spot. You still have to see it, right? Mitchell Melton hasn't been an every down player yet in his career, but he's got some credentials, having played as a rotational player for Ohio State. So I think they're better there. Just got to see it. And if they can get home with 4, I think that's really going to do dividends for the defense and really, really help Virginia as they try to improve, right? They've been really lagging and one of the worst teams in the ACC over the last couple of seasons in terms of sacks. They need to improve greatly there if they want that defense to be better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you looked at Virginia's plan this offseason was the trenches, reinforce the defensive line so that you can make that push, get to the quarterback so that your lead tackler is not your safety. I think that's what Tony Elliott also mentioned. Like, my lead tackler cannot be the safety this year. I want my linebackers to be the guys there, but you also want that defensive line to get that push up front. And to be fair, in the last few years, injuries really cost UVA. I mean, you had guys playing inside, outside, inside. They didn't have the stability there. You had guys just moving in with no experience coming in. I mean, Billy Kudelka had to come in last year and fill in holes when they had injuries. So, the guys that didn't have that time to develop, they're coming in, hey, let's throw you into the fire. So having that depth there will certainly help Virginia. And they did this also on the other side, on the O-line as well. They used the opportunity off season. They had some bad luck. You have to say that was bad luck. I mean, they brought Monroe Mills in the winter, and then after that, he got hurt. Then you brought McKeelan Thomas to come in, and then he got hurt. But to be fair, they actually have depth, Greg. Now, from everything I've heard, people are happy on the development on where this O-line is going. I mean, this is a far contrast to what I've heard in previous years going into the season of still a question mark going in because they are happy with who's number 2 in certain those positions.
Yeah, I think even you hear Chandler Morris talk about how excited he is to play behind those guys, and then how after every passing rep in practice, they're turning around and asking him, hey, was the pocket okay? Was the pocket clean? So I think that's a step in the right direction. You have some guys that really take some pride in protecting the quarterback, and even one of the newcomers, Wallace Unamba, he didn't allow a sack last year. I think didn't allow a sack in his first 2 junior college seasons. So he comes in and he was telling me, he's like, that's the mindset: protect the quarterback, don't let anybody get back there. And I think if Virginia can do that, and it appears he's going to be the starter at right tackle, Wallace Unamba, the transfer who took a unique route to get to Virginia after a pit stop at Kentucky in the spring after playing at New Mexico last fall for former UVA coach Bronco Mendenhall. But it appears like they feel better about the right side of the line going into this year, whereas they always felt good about the left side the last few years. That's still the case, right? They still feel really good about Mikhail Boley and Noah Josie, but this year, it feels like they have the right side to kind of complement that left side and maybe even it out a little bit. And I think too, Jackie, I think you know this too. Brady Wilson at center has been an important addition and an important upgrade. Virginia's gotten good play there from Brian Stevens the last couple of years, but Brady Wilson's played the position his whole career, and I think that makes a little bit of a difference at center. He's also bigger, right? He looks the part of maybe a future pro. I think that's been a nice addition, and you just expect what you expect from Boley and Josie, and as long as Boley stays healthy, they think he's a Sunday guy and going to play. Going to be a draft pick come spring.
Yeah, you've got Boley, Josie, Wilson, then Drake Metcalf currently at that right guard, and then Wallace Unamba is your projected starting offensive line. And then you've got like Tyshawn Wyatt, who seemed to play a little bit right tackle as well from what I saw in the last practice. You also have Ben York, who's competing for that position as well, who got some praise from Virginia coaches, what he did for spring and what he continued to do in fall camp. You have Kevin Wigginton that has been rotating in and looks like at left guard behind Noah Josie. And then that left tackle position, I've seen Jack Whitmer kind of floats in different positions this fall camp. I've seen him at right guard. I've seen him at right tackle. I've seen him at left tackle. So it seems like he's one of the guys that they feel comfortable moving around, or at least trying to. And then Grant Ellinger was the guy who I've seen kind of backing up Brady Wilson at center, but they also have Noah Hartzell there. So just by listing those players, and I even mentioned Wallabaugh, who transferred in from Syracuse. So you have a lot of options for Virginia, and Ethan Sipe seems to have gotten Tony Elliott's caught his Elliott's eye as well. So a lot of these guys, I feel like when we talked about the O-line last year, I wasn't talking about potential the guys on the 2 deep that they could actually affect the game or come in, and felt confident about that. I think this is the first time.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I think even going back to like February, March, we had a conversation with Terry Heffernan, and he had mentioned Virginia had noticed a little bit how teams in the ACC had built their O-lines through the portal, and that it could be done that way. I mentioned SMU, mentioned Louisville, of course, had gone that route. And I think Virginia kind of realized like it doesn't have to be built through the high school ranks, especially when you're trying to play catch up. Let's go build it through the portal. Of course, make a financial commitment to do so. And although they're top 2 targets, and 2 potential right tackle starters in Thomas, of course, and Monroe Mills, even though those guys got hurt, they still brought in enough, it seems like, to fortify and enhance the unit compared to the past few years. Now, they got to go show it, and they're going to have to run the ball a little bit better. But from what the players have been saying, what the coaches have been saying, is that's been there. That's been there this training camp. And if Virginia can run the ball, that really changes some things for the Hoos.
Yeah, before we actually go to a break, let's talk about that running back room, because I think this is the most excited I've seen Virginia about the running back room, because I've heard from several people around the program that Jamari Taylor is the deal. He is a guy who they believe is going to be the best running back in the ACC. He has shown durability, which is a major thing for a running back during his career. And they've also seen Xavier Brown take the next step. I mean, talking to Xavier Brown, he said that he worked this offseason to make sure that he was healthy, that his body was ready for the season. He hyped up the nutrition staff and the new kitchen that has allowed him to eat better as well. And then you also have, Noah Vaughn, who's taking the next step in his development, and Harrison Whaley, who came in from the portal. So they have options, and it feels like Virginia has taken the next step in that running back room in conjunction with having guys on the O-line that could protect them and make those gaps.
Yeah, Jamari Taylor was an 1,000-yard rusher last year. I know it's at the FCS level, and if you can get even half the production, right, Virginia will have its first 500-yard running back since Jordan Ellis, right, in 2018. They've had a steady rushers at quarterback since then, right? Bryce Perkins and even Brennan Armstrong to an extent, but they haven't had a running back do it in quite a while. Maybe if they can get that, plus the complement of Xavier Brown, and to keep those guys healthy and fresh, right? By the end of the season last year, Brown and Kobe Pace were literally worn down. Right? They were hurt. Of course, they missed the Virginia Tech game, and Virginia was forced to go to Noah Vaughn when he hadn't played much, and use Chris Tyree at running back. By having four that they trust, three who have been college starters before, in Taylor, I guess Brown. I don't know. You can classify him as a starter. He's played enough to be in that category. Whaley's been a number one back before at Northern Illinois and Wyoming. You've had three guys who have been the top guy before, and when you have that, it gives you a little more cushion, a little more feel for that you can get through the season at a position that takes a bunch of hits.
No, for sure. And then when you add what you added for them there, you can add the guys on the wide receiver room. That gives you a little bit more of a buffer because you have several different options. You have options at other positions like tight end. Your offense now doesn't feel like it's restricted anymore. And we're going to actually take a quick break before we talk about those skilled players on the offensive side of the ball that could make a difference for Virginia. So we're going to take a little bit break, but on the other side, we'll talk about the wide receivers, the tight end, and then the big question mark on defense that I have, the secondary. And welcome back to the Good Old Podcast. I'm joined by Greg Madia. We're breaking down everything we've learned from training camp for Virginia as we look forward to the season starting in just over a week away. Greg, we ended up talking about the run game, which we think is going to be better for Virginia between the running back depth they got and the O-line. But also when you look at these other skilled players they're able to add in the wide receiver room and just the development of their tight end room, where you have guys who are more experienced coming back, like to go to Tweedy and Sage Ennis. Let's talk first about that tight end room, because I feel like Dakota Tweedy, this could be a breakout year for him. I think that's all kind of leading that way when you think of his body development, his how he's gotten used to the tight end position. I think him and obviously having Sage Ennis return, that could be a very good productive tight end room.
Yeah, Sage Ennis was a good run blocker for Virginia last year when he was healthy, before he suffered, his second torn ACL in 10 months, right? Did it at the end of his time at Clemson, and then did it early in Virginia's season. He was a good run blocker for them early in the year last year, and I think getting him back will help in that department. And then Twitty, they want him to be the breakout guy, right? They want to see it come to fruition, and they're excited about him. You just gotta see it, and if it'll happen. I think there are some interesting things they can do with Twitty, right? As a former wide receiver, he's got a little bit of a different skill set than the average tight end in terms of catching passes. He's got the knack. He can go up and get the ball. He can catch. He can make a tough possession catch. You just got to see if he can do it in a game. But I think with those two, Twitty and Ennis, they'll be okay at tight end. Beyond that, if you have any injuries, right? Because both of those guys have injury history, Twitty and Ennis. That's where the question mark comes in a little bit. Is do they have a third or a fourth guy they trust? And I don't think they have that yet.
Yeah, they're hoping that John Rogers will take the next step for him. That's something that they've been saying, and Takai Kirby is the other guy. So that's what they're hoping for in that room. But you mentioned Sage Ennis. And that's the guy that we noticed notable difference once his injury hit. Tyler Neville's role had to change. I mean, they missed his run blocking, right? You can tell from the game. And then in the wide receiver room, they missed Trell Harris. When his injury came down, then they lost the ability to stretch the field. So now you're looking at that wide receiver room and you see a lot of different options. You have Trell Harris. When he's healthy, he's a weapon that they can use to stretch the field, but they also have other guys now. You have Jamal Edrin with his size and his frame. Then you have Cam Ross, who has been blowing people away in his training camp this fall, and his ability and what they can do with him, not only in the offense, but on special teams. And then you also hear about, what they can do with other guys that are returning and what their development is. And you have Jaden Thomas as well that's coming back. Cam Courtney in the slot that are also moving outside. I think this is an interesting wide receiver room because you have a lot of options on the table. It'll be interesting to see who gets the first crack and who gets the first snaps for UVA.
Yeah, I think they're excited about their young guys too. They're freshmen have
Oh, yeah,
made some
Josiah Abdullah,
plays
yeah.
in training camp, right? We had touched on, right, Dylan Newton Short and Isaiah Robinson, and then of course Josiah Abdullah, who started making a positive impression this past spring when he enrolled early, right? Both him and Dylan Newton Short were early enrollees. And I think those guys, have maybe a chance to contribute. Maybe it's not so early, maybe it's a little bit later, but I think those guys can even help Virginia. And I think who runs out there first, to me, it feels like Cam Ross is going to be the slot guy, right? I mean, everything. I don't know if a player can get as much praise as Cam Ross has gotten publicly from his coaches and teammates this training camp, but he's really wowed his fellow Cavaliers and what he can do, and he's caught a ton of balls, right? Spent an early part of his career at UConn, was at James Madison last year. He's played a lot of football, so he's going to be a guy that they feel like they can count on, and it's a little bit a more known commodity than the other options they have in the slot, right? And Abdullah and Cam Courtney, and then Sudarian Harrison, even who it kind of feels like a make or break year for Sudarian. But I think Cam Ross is the clear slot guy. Out wide, I think the combination of Jamal Edrin, and then of course Andre Green still around, Trell Harris, and Jaden Thomas. Like, at least you have to feel good about your two deep at both of those spots. And then maybe down the line you get to a point where you can see some of the young guys competing and contributing. But I think they all offer something different, and that's something Chandler Morris has said a bunch. Is like, you got a bunch of different body types. Some guys can flat out run. Some guys can make tough catches. Some guys are taller, longer. Some are the short, shiftier type. I think that can cause some problems for opposing defenses. And Virginia, if they can really run the ball, it'll be interesting to see what they can do off play action and what they can do when Chandler Morris is kind of dancing around behind the pocket or throwing on the run off of play action, because I think that's going to open up a whole lot for this Virginia offense. I think it'll be a little bit different feel than what Virginia's had. But to me, it still is dependent on them running the football well. If they can run the football well, I think, man, that passing game's got a chance to do some different things. And because of how Chandler Morris has distributed the ball on his pass, right? He's been a guy that kind of throws to a bunch of different receivers. He's not a quarterback that locks in on the top target and sticks with him. He spreads the ball all around. I think because of that, it'll make it very, very tough for opposing defenses to game plan for UVA if it all works as what we're hearing.
Yeah, definitely hearing a lot more positive things about the offense this training camp that I've had in the previous. I've heard a lot of them actually, beating the defense, saying like, oh, the O-line's doing well, Chandler Morris is doing well. And it says a lot that we are like over 20 minutes in a podcast and we're just mentioning the quarterbacks, because that has not been a concern at all for UVA. They're happy with Chandler Morris has been able to do this training camp and his progress from the spring, because he said ACC kickoff when I was talking to him that he was a little, not a fish out of water in the spring, but he's still learning the playbook. So he wasn't as confident in what he was doing yet in the spring, but he is now confident in training camp and has been showing. Good news, they have had no turnovers in 2 scrimmages, which is a good step forward for the offense. But Chandler Mullers and Daniel Kalen has been everything that UVA expected just from hearing and seeing them out there. And then I think the only shocking thing for quarterback for me has been Cole Gear has been the guy that has been kind of propelled to number 3. And what he's been doing, I mean, a lot of hype was around Bjorn Jorgensen. He's a very talented quarterback, but because of Cole Gear's injuries, we haven't seen much of him in the last year or so for his high school team. But it seems like he's come in, has impressed a lot of people as a number 3 guy. But it seems like Chandler Morris, Daniel Kalen, everything that UVA hoped for.
Yeah, and that's good to have in place, right? With Kalen, as you look toward the future, and he really looks the part of like a prototypical quarterback at, what, a 6'4", really tall, long, and he's got some deceptive athleticism, I guess, is what some people have termed it to me. So that's promising. But I think with Morris, like, just in reference to what you were saying about him, maybe not feeling great in the spring, it's still a transition for him. For the first time, he's playing in a more balanced offense, right? He's always been an air raid guy from when he arrived at Oklahoma to when he went to TCU. And then last year at North Texas, he's always been an air raid quarterback. This is requiring him at times, right, to get under center, hand the ball off, and do a little bit different things at quarterback. And honestly, more what the NFL would look for. And I think he wanted that. I remember him telling me that after he committed is he wanted a chance to play in a more pro-style system. So this is his opportunity. And as he's gone along, I think one thing that's helped in usher that transition and comfort has been his chemistry and cohesion with offensive coordinator Des Kitchings and quarterbacks coach Taylor Lamb. Like Chandler said, he's got no problem telling them, hey, if something doesn't work, just take it out. Like if I'm not comfortable with it, just take it out. And I think it takes somebody who's played, at a couple of different schools, has been around a while, has thrown for a bunch of touchdowns, to speak up and say something when it doesn't feel right. And then they'll adjust and tweak the offense. I think there's been some good back and forth between the OC and the quarterback. And that's something we really hadn't heard in the past. And it makes sense, right? Morris has credibility, right? He has credibility as soon as he walked in the room at Virginia, right? Calandra was young the last couple of years. Even Tony Muskett hadn't played a ton, or hadn't played at all at the FBS level before getting to UVA, right? He'd been a good quarterback at the FCS level, but still needed to show himself at this level. So I think with Morris, you had that credibility and he could do that.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing that from when just talking to the players, that even the players have said that they like talking to Chandler and just having the ability to kind of go back and forth there too. There's this level of chemistry and camaraderie that they were able to build. And also we talk about all the new faces, all the portal stuff, but they're also a lot older. I mean, I did a story about Brady Wilson going through the portal with his wife, which is so strange to me. Dealing with high school recruits on a daily basis, but also dealing with recruiting. I never thought I would be talking about guys going through. I mean, Sage Ennis, I believe, is engaged. A lot of the other guys, you're going to the next stage of their life. I mean, Antonio Clary is getting his second master's, right? I think he's in his mid-20s. And you have Montino Williams, who's just turning 18 in August. I mean, that is a whole master's degree difference. So that is this idea of the veterans and maturity is what you're also seeing in how they interact with coaches too. This is different for them kind of moving forward. And we're going to go to the other side of the ball because Chandler Morris has been impressed by some of the DB units that he's been seeing in the secondary. And that's been the biggest question. That is something that we still don't know the answer, Greg.
No clue.
I mean, right. I have people ask who's going to start at corner. I'm like, I don't know if the coaches know yet who they're going to be picked as 1 and 2, because that is also another position they've been unlucky with. Jam Jackson tearing his ACL in the spring, Dre Walker tearing his ACL at the end of spring after spring game. So some point probably in one of the workouts. So you had those two guys, and Jamarick Morris, a transfer, also had an ACL. He just had surgery. He mentioned it in his social media post on Tuesday that it went well. So he just had surgery for his ACL tear. So you're thinking Donovan Platt missed a couple practices, Emmanuel Carlin missed a couple practices. Those were kind of two guys that I thought were kind of lead the way there as far as starting corner. Jordan Robinson is another option. Josiah Persinger, a freshman, had to kind of step in and take some reps because of those injuries. So, I mean, who is your starter corner, Greg? Because we always talk about safety here in a second, but I mean, that cornerback battle is interesting.
I think Platt will be a starter. If I had to put money on one guy to be a starter, it'd probably be Platt. He played all last year for Army, was very, very a very key piece in their American Conference Championship season, and really he was a good player for them. He actually picked off Chandler Morris in a game when North Texas and Army played, and I had asked Platt about that. He's like, yeah, I give Morris a hard time about that all the time. So I think he's someone, proven ability, done it in a program, somebody who they were thrilled to get. Like the whole coaching staff was pumped to get, because they had some guys who had recruited him at other places earlier, like before he went to Army, right? Keith Gaither was the lead recruiter on Platt when he went to Army, when Gaither was an assistant there. Kevin Downing was at Navy trying to get him. So they had a whole bunch of folks involved in his recruitment. Tough to get him out of Army, no doubt, but glad they did. because I know they're excited about him. And then too, at the other spot, I think that's kind of the more up in the air spot to me. It's like, is it going to be Carnley? Is it going to be Jordan Robinson? Right? Jordan Robinson's been the one transfer who's been out there every day. At least when we've been able to get out at practice, he's been the one guy healthy. And who's played a good bit of football, right? Cincinnati, Kentucky, started his career at the Division II level, and he's tall and long, 6'4", 6'5" and he's that long, rangy type corner that John Rodzinski and Jerome Cox seem to really value when they're on the recruiting trail. So maybe he's the leader right now, but Carnley, of course, probably the higher potential of the two, right? I think if that's fair to say. But I think those three guys would probably be the ones I'd point to at this point.
Yeah, and then you consider Jason Prevard has cornerback experience, but they really like him at nickel. Then you have Christian Charles. Yeah, Christian Charles coming in. They see him. Sometimes I hear him about safety when he's back to health. He was dealing with a calf injury. See him at safety, but also potentially in that spur position. That if it's, I think the secondary is going to be all about packages, right? I think you're going to see different personnel depending on what package they're going to be running and what they need. So I could see Jason Brevard and Christian Charles kind of coming in and out. But then in that safety room, you have Devin Neal, obviously the guy who's experienced, he was all ACC, I think 2 years ago for Louisville. So you have Devin Neal, I feel like kind of anchoring that veteran there until Antonio Clary comes back from his injury. He's expected to start practicing at the end of August. So still a little ways away for him to coming back. So Devin Neal is your veteran anchor there. So you're thinking possibly Ethan Minter could be a guy that comes in. He's been getting some praise, but then you have DeMarcus Crosby as another guy as an option. Corey Cosner, a freshman, has been seeing a lot of praise, and the staff has kind of said that they feel like he should contribute at some point or in some way. They expect him to contribute. So the safety one is also one where, apart from Devin Neal, I think as the guy that you say, like, yes, he will be on the field a lot. I don't see another guy being like, this is going to be he's the guy that will be there the same amount of snaps. And I think even then they don't think they want to have these guys take so many snaps as well, because what they saw, Jonas Senker was taking too many snaps.
Yeah, I think that's fair. At the other safety spot, right, it's probably going to be like a combination of Minter, Crosby, and then maybe who's that? Who else did you say?
Caleb Hardy has some veteran experience, so you have several options.
Yeah, like Crosby to me is interesting, right? He was an all CUSA player at Sam Houston a couple of years ago, was New Mexico State's second leading tackler last year. I think I was looking at it between his JUCO days at Kilgore and his 2 seasons at the Group of 5 level. He's played in 54 games. He's made a bunch of tackles. Like, to me, that player doesn't come here unless he thinks he's going to play and contribute in a meaningful way. But I think with Neal and then Minter and Crosby, like, that's probably those three to me would be the primary guys at safety at this point until Clary gets back, and then maybe it deepens a little bit.
Yeah, I think him and Ethan Minter would be who I would probably would be the rotation there. But it'll be interesting when he comes back, because obviously prior to his injury last year, he was having one of the best seasons. I think him and Jonas, it was alternating between Jonas Senker and him, who was having Defensive Player of the Week for Virginia. It was both of them. So that's definitely, when you look at the potential, Antonio Clary would probably be one guy that we look there. Finally, before we go on to answering questions from our subscribers and maybe giving your season predictions, I know you love that. Yeah. Before we get there, what is your biggest question mark still for Virginia? Is it the secondary? Is that the biggest concern for you going into the fall and going into the season?
Yeah, to me, it is the secondary. I know John Rodzinski and Jerome Cox have done this before, right? Cornerback has kind of been a revolving door for UVA, and they've had success doing it this way, right, through the portal. Like last year, I thought they did a really good job with Kempton Shine and Jam Jackson, bringing those guys in and getting them up to speed, right? Shine was coming from the Group of 5. Jam Jackson was coming in from the FCS, and they made it work to an extent. This year, there's a lot of turnover back there. And I know there's a lot of turnover at some other positions for UVA, but the secondary, it feels like because also those guys that have been banged up in camp, even if they miss a couple of practices here or there, that factors into me. Like, how is this going to work when you play when you play week one? And that's an interesting test with Coastal Carolina, right? They've changed offenses. They're going to be an air raid system, right? Their new OC is a former Mike Leach assistant. To me, that's really unique. So they're going to be tested out of the gate, and some unknown there because of the coordinators, a new face to that Coastal Carolina staff. It'll that to me is fascinating because you're gonna find out about them quickly to see if that defensive back group is up to snuff. Because that to me is the biggest question.
No, for sure. I agree with you. And I feel like Kempton Shine did not get enough credit during last year.
Good player.
He was steady. He was a good player. And he wasn't talked about because, well, he was doing his job. So I feel like every time people had talked about how bad or how the negative thing about the secondary, I'm like, I mean, Kempton Shine did his job. And to be fair to Jam Jackson, I think he also expected to have a couple more months developmentally before, but then obviously injuries occurred and he was thrown in the fire a little quicker and ended up getting Defensive Rookie of the Year voted by members of his team. So I think he got a little bit more of the negativity than sometimes he deserves as well, because if you're not getting pressure up front, you're forcing linebackers to go a little bit higher and get double teamed, then that's just a cascading effect. So that all was on Jam Jackson as well. But I did ask our subscribers to send us in some questions. We actually answered a few of them just by our discussions, like what we thought of the D-line and Daniel Kalen. So we kind of touched on those. Some of the other questions here is, do you believe the kicking game and special teams in general will be better? And I think it will be, Greg. I think they have better returners. Cam Ross obviously is a very talented returner. I also think having the competitive depth will allow them to play guys fresher on special teams. I think the depth at linebacker was one thing that I think they're helping special teams. But I think having Mike Adams also join the staff last year has helped them move forward. And I think this year they'll be able to continue to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, last year they were second in the country in kickoff coverage defense. And that was a big improvement. They were pretty good punt coverage defense. I think what fans want to see is the return game give them something. Right. That's been one area.
I think they just don't want no more muff punts. Is basically
right. Chris Tyree at Notre Dame was that was not great on the kickoff. The punt situation, the punt return situation has been up and down. Right. And last year you thought with Tyree coming in, that was going to be a game changer. Just wasn't the case. Right. It just didn't work out. He was kind of in and out injury wise beginning of the year. And then again at the end of the year, and it was just tough. Just didn't work out. But if they can shore up the return game, like they've got a chance to be pretty good on special teams. And I think in the kicking game, right, with Bettridge and Sparks, you kind of know what you're going to get, right? Bettridge typically is going to be accurate, and you might not get the 45, 50 yarders from Will Bettridge, but you'll get accuracy, anything probably within the 40, 45. And then with Sparks, he's got a big booming leg. And the only time he's really been in trouble is when the punt protection has broken down over the last couple of years. So I think they'll be better in special teams and build on some of the strides they started to make last year under the coordinator, Keith Gaither.
So a lot of the questions deal with predictions. So I'll just wait for us to do that. I'm looking here and they're like, can we make a bowl game? Are we going to wait 8 games? What are the 3 things you want to see for us to get 8 games? So I feel like a lot of these are prediction oriented as I'm looking through this. But one of the other things is someone asked the interesting question about how Elliott appoints captains after the year is done, but they have weekly game captains. So he's asking do you feel like that kind of impacts leadership on the team? I haven't seen that impact leadership on the team. I haven't heard anything. I feel like leaders emerge anyways, and you can already tell who the leadership of the team. I mean, Chandler Morris is one of the leaders of the team. You can clearly see that. So I haven't seen anything.
Jacquie, I think Tony's decision to name and let everyone know Morris was going to be the quarterback, after the spring and in the early part of the summer gave them direction. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you need to throw a Captain C on
No.
the jersey to prove it. I think that was enough designation that, that was a change from the last couple of years, right? Is he's, that there was no quarterback battle. The last couple of years, you've had that in camp where they let it play out, and it wasn't until, a week or two before the first game that Virginia named a starting quarterback. There's been no doubts, and that's allowed the team to kind of rally around Chandler Morris, and other leaders for the team. Like, it's pretty obvious to me, just being around a little bit, is like, a defensive end, Mitchell Melton, already has kind of fit into that role at linebacker. James Jackson, of course, is kind of the older, experienced guy, and then Jameer Carter on the interior of the D line. On offense, it's Morris, it's Josie. It's pretty simple to me.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the oldest rosters in the ACC. I feel like the leadership kind of comes with the territory. I mean, we talked about it. I mean, Brady Wilson has a wife, and she has a job, and she's doing her second degree, and you're like, I mean, that guy's living life outside of football. I mean, these guys have other things that they're worried about too. Those are your veterans in your locker room. They have different struggles and challenges, and that kind of goes into your locker room, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I feel like it just kind of is self-explanatory of who can be a leader there. Before we kind of get into predictions, I feel like the elephant in the room every time I do a podcast and I ask people to send me their questions, I always get, how hot is the hot seat for the coaching staff? That is something that I get all the time.
I think it's fair.
Right. Yeah. And I think, I mean, even everyone knows that with all the buy-in the program has made this offseason between the donation and getting that nutrition donation to get that fully staffed kitchen in there, getting admissions on board, to delaying some of those start of the year with guys playing a national title game, then coming in afterwards. I mean, all that buy-in increases the expectations. So
100%.
I think a bowl game is a minimum, I think, but I think just showing that there is movement in the right direction. And I would even say, I hate putting a win total when it comes to something like a hot seat because there's so many other factors that involve, but I think a bowl game is obviously the minimum here.
I think a bowl game, if they get to a bowl game, Tony and the staff will keep their jobs. That would be my opinion. Just because, it hasn't happened in Virginia in quite a while, right? They were eligible for the bowl game in 2021, but didn't play, right? The game got canceled, the Fenway Bowl, because of COVID. So it hasn't happened, right? They haven't been to a bowl since the Orange Bowl. They need, the program, if you want to keep building the program and keep growing it forward, you got to get to a bowl game.
Yes.
So I think if he does that, he'll keep his job. If not, I think probably all bets are off. I think anything that happens would be fair game. And I think the coaches know this too. The players are aware of the situation. Mm-hmm. Like, they know you can't deliver 4 straight losing seasons and expect there to be no consequence. It's modern college football, right? So to me, I think everybody kind of understands the reality of the situation. It's just a matter of seeing if they can get to that 6. And with the schedule they have, like last year, they started on the right track, right? Were they 4-1 out of the gate? Mm-hmm. And then the back half of the schedule was just brutal. They played 3 college football playoff teams in Clemson, Notre Dame, and SMU. They don't have that.
2 of them on the road. 2 of them on the road.
Yeah, they don't have that on their schedule this year, though.
No.
Right? At least going into the year.
I mean, they have a really favorable schedule. I mean, apart from that road trip to Cal, I mean, a lot of those road trips are just a drive away in North Carolina. I mean, that's favorable. NC State, Duke, UNC, that's a good road game schedule. I mean, I know they have to go to Louisville as well, but I mean, they played well in Louisville.
Yeah, those games have been down to the wire games the last couple of years. Like, to me, what this team needs to do if they're going to get to a bowl game is finish those games they've been in. Like, find a way to win the Louisville game when it's down to the 4th quarter and you're leading or you're hanging in there. Like, find a way to win those type games, and then you'll have a chance to flip your record and change some potential outcomes and results.
I mean, Tony Elliott has been harping on it this entire training camp. I mean, I don't know how many times I've been walking to get post-practice interviews, and he's been harping, explain how many games have we won this year. The details matter. We've been in close games. Let's turn those close games around. I mean, the staff has been harping on that every practice.
Yeah, I think there's been urgency in camp too. I mean, I think, just being around, even the other day watching a running back drills, Noah Vaughn fumbled the ball, and Keith Gaither stopped the drill. All those running backs are doing up downs. The whole unit, not just the kid who fumbled the ball. So to me, like, there's been some serious accountability in his training camp. Tony the other day started practice by talking to the team about their need to have a clear focus as the season gets closer. So I think they're doing a lot of the right things in terms of getting the players to understand that yeah, this is an important year, and if you guys want to make the most of it, every little thing matters. So to me, I think they understand it and they know what's at stake.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about up downs. I mean, I saw Adam Mims send guys, you drop a pass, do up downs. I've seen the secondary, everyone do up downs for a bad, poorly done drill. I mean, that's been consistent around, not just it's been something that accountability has been a big thing this training camp, and not just from the coaches, but from the individual players as well. I can't remember who it was, but it was in the wide receiver room. Adam Mims didn't have to tell him to do up downs. He just did it. He dropped the ball. He just did the up downs. It's like, I know I need to do it. So there's definitely more accountability there. Yeah. It's like it's already ingrained in their brains. But this is a good lead off because we talked about the urgency of the season, about the hot seat, about predictions for this season. I know we both did not agree where Virginia was in the ACC preseason projections. I think we both predicted them at around the 8th spot.
Yeah, I had him. It's on my computer somewhere. I think I had him 8th.
Yeah, so around the 8th spot. So that's probably around 7-ish wins. 7, 8.
Yeah, I think I have him. I have him at 7. That's where I have him this year. 7. I think
that's where I am as well. When I look at the schedule, I think there's some clear games that I think Virginia is going to be the favorite, and I think they might sneak one. I mean, I look at that Florida State game on a Friday night, and I don't know what Florida State's going to be this year. It'll be an interesting game, but you can always count Virginia to play one of those games in a way where you don't expect them to. Like, they're clearly going to be the underdogs that Florida's coming here to Florida State on a Friday night. Short week for Florida State. I don't know, but then you also think of at UNC. I mean, they've always played well at Chapel Hill. What type of team is Bill Belichick going to have at that point? I mean, no one knows. So I think Virginia, with the talent that they have, I think 7 wins is very plausible. And I think honestly, I'm curious in that first NC State game to see how those pieces come together.
Yeah, I think that game will give you an indication of what Virginia might be or could be this season. The good news for Virginia is it's not a conference game, so you get that quality opponent without the penalty of it being a conference game if it doesn't go well. So I'm at 7. I just think the offense, there's more potential there. The defense, I think the defense has more questions just because of the secondary, but I like their chances to get to the quarterback more. And I've thought, if they can run the ball, protect the quarterback better, and then get to the quarterback better, they should have a better season. And I look at all those things, plus a better, what I think will be a better quarterback, in Chandler Morris than what they've had the past couple of years. Like, to me, it just makes sense for them to have an uptick this season and improve and get to that bowl game that they've been trying to get to.
Yeah, a lot of the questions here say, what does UVA need to do to get to 8 wins? I think that's I don't know why 8. I don't know why 8.
6 is the magic number. 8.
I feel like 8 has been a number that I've heard a lot, and I was like, I don't know why 8 is the magic number. But a lot of people are asking about 8 wins, and honestly, it's like, just to get, everything is the same from 6 to 8. You just have to not shoot yourself in the foot. That's what Virginia. That's been the biggest problem for them, is just their own mistakes have cost them games. Just played cleanly. And
they've had a couple of no-shows the last couple of years too, like last year's game against Carolina. Yeah. A couple of years ago when Georgia Tech came to Charlottesville. They've had a couple of games that you think they should be in and that they no-show. That can't happen anymore, right? That's the kind of thing that you can't make any excuses for. If you have a player injured, somebody's sick, right? I think what was a Carolina game last year. Brian Stevens was sick.
He had pneumonia, and then Ty Furnish was hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, it shifted the whole thing for the offensive line and totally derailed Virginia's chances to winning game. Like, you've protected yourself from those type of situations, or at least you think you have because of what you've done in the portal to this point. Like, those kind of no-shows, like that can't happen in games Virginia's supposed to be. And then on the schedule this year, there are no games you look at and think, Virginia has no shot. You think, all those games are out there to be had. They may not win them, but they should be in those in most of those games, if not all of them.
Yeah, I actually just pull up the schedule because I know the schedule, but sometimes I'm like, I need to actually look at the schedule. But yeah, I mean, Coastal Carolina at NC State, William and Mary, Stanford, Florida State at home. I mean, that's a really nice start for them.
Yeah, four of the first 5 at home.
And it's
And
again, it's the only time you go on the road. I mean, apart from Cal, I mean, the next road game you have at Louisville, but then you end the season at UNC, at Cal, Wake Forest at home, at Duke, Virginia Tech at home. I mean,
you got to buy before the Virginia Tech game.
Yeah, you got to buy right before the Virginia Tech game. Who I think that's going to be. I mean, Virginia Tech staff is also on the hot seat. So they're trying to figure out how their season's going. And that kind of ties into one of these questions that kind of led from the prediction was, which opponent do we feel like has improved most through the portal for them? Or do you feel like Virginia Tech has improved enough? Because that's obviously the game people want to talk about this through the portal. And again, I hate preseason. Like I did a whole spiel about this on one of the other podcasts I was guest. I hate preseason rankings right now because of all the different changes. You don't know what teams have. I mean, I cover Virginia on a daily basis and we're still trying to figure out their secondary. Virginia Tech, there's still the same questions that they had last year.
Yeah. Yeah, they got a different offensive line situation, right? They brought in the O-line coach from West Virginia, and he brought in a couple of players with him. So maybe the O-line is a little better there. I think, though, too, like just in terms of the schedule in general, like Louisville's done a good job, like through the portal. Like Jeff Brom has a system, has a formula that has seemed to work for him, whether it's bringing in offensive linemen or the quarterback position, right? They've had a transfer quarterback each of the last couple of years since Brom has been there, and that's going to be the case again with Miller Moss in from USC. So I think Louisville will be very, very tough again. Like that to me, if everything breaks right for Louisville, like that's a playoff contender.
Right.
But other than that on the schedule, I don't you don't know what Florida State's going to be. They got new coordinators and new players, so
I know
it's tough to say. But to me, like Louisville, you just trust it a little more because that formula's worked for them the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the schedule. I mean, obviously Duke has the same staff. They've done it before. So that's obviously someone that they've done this system before.
And they went out and got a good quarterback too and Mensa.
Exactly.
So there's probably some faith there. And they have good players also at other positions, right? Chandler Rivers at corner, a couple of good offensive linemen. They have a good team and a good foundation. They played really good defense last year, and I don't expect that to change.
Yeah, I mean, the big question marks for me on this schedule, as far as I don't know what's going to happen, is, like I said, Florida State. I mean, they brought in Castellanos as their quarterback, but I mean, we've seen Castellanos at Boston College. What's going to be the difference when he goes to Florida State? How's that going to work in their system? And I mean, we've seen what happened with FSU when they had too many transfers last year.
Yeah.
So how is this going to be different this year? It's a Friday night game too. So that always adds a different area for the team that's traveling, shorter week. And North Carolina, I mean, I don't know what to expect from a Bill Belichick UNC. I mean, it's October. That's a lot of time between now and October. So I don't know the drama around UNC. So I don't know what to expect from them. And Wake Forest is a new staff. So you haven't seen them yet. So, but yeah, it's when you look across the ACC, if anyone tells you that, I mean, apart from Clemson being number one, do you know anyone else? I think you could probably say Georgia Tech will probably be consistent, kind of like Louisville. They have a system that they go on and you kind of see it going, but it's just up in the air, honestly.
I think really like the top 6 teams are known. Like, in my opinion, the teams I voted in the top 6 of the ACC preseason poll, I think Clemson's going to be good. I think Miami will be good, right?
As long as
Miami,
as long as they know how to kneel, right? Like,
yeah.
and
Well,
make
I
those
mean,
coaching.
they're better on the O lines and the D lines. Like, they have more high talent players, I guess, than most teams in the ACC outside of Clemson. Louisville, Georgia Tech, Duke, the SMU, right? SMU was a playoff team. Can't forget about
Right.
them going into this year. And their quarterback is back. They're not on Virginia's schedule, but to me, those are the 6 teams that I kind of look at in the ACC, and at least I have a great feel for what they're going to be. Beyond that, like, there are a lot of teams that turned over the roster. There are a lot of teams that changed coordinators. So going in these first few weeks will be interesting.
Yes. And then, like, people always ask, but what about the portal roster? How can you rate the portal roster? I was like, I don't know. They're in a different team. They're different with different combinations, with a different coordinator, with a different environment.
Yeah.
There's so many things that can affect that. So it's hard to really look into if you have a complete turnover like Virginia. I mean, 50 players is a lot to kind of break down and see the difference.
And it could go well. It could
go
well,
really well.
Or it could not, right?
We saw the not in Florida State last year.
Yeah.
But we also saw the positives in other programs, right? And how they were able to use the transfer portal. I mean, SMU, like you mentioned, the O-line. I mean, they used that because they knew they were going to bump up in competition. So they were able to use the portal to their advantage. I mean, it's going to be a fun football season, Greg. I look forward to it. I hate having all this hypothesis and theories and what we expect. I just want to play some games now, Greg.
Yeah, it'll be exciting. I think Virginia gets to a bowl, 7 wins in the regular season. I'll leave it at that. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, I've already warned my family. I already told my kids, like, Mom might be having to travel around the Christmas time period. I already broke the news. That's like, just expect this, okay, kids. All right, well, Greg, I appreciate you joining me on the show today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Jackie.
And of course, Wahoo's 24/7 will be covering everything around UVA football. Next week, Tony Elliott will be available for the press conference on Tuesdays. We'll have full coverage of that. Wednesdays, the coordinators will be available. And of course, Saturdays are game day. So we'll have full coverage of that. And next week, we also have a special show with Drake Metcalf and Jason Hammond, both joining the show. So look forward to that. But for Greg Madia, I'm Jacquie Franciulli, and hope you have a great rest of your day.